What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name's Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Just because I know Brad Bolt loves when we talk about this, Shawn, it's that time of year. I got off the phone with a landscaping snow removal client of mine.
Hey.
I said, how you been? How's business? He said, they're expecting 6 inches on Monday. So I'm crazy getting everything ready. Not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, we don't have any snow in the forecast down here, so
no. Of course
sounds like you're gonna have a busy season up there.
It is what it is. Another solo. Shawn had and I gotta just make a comment here, Shawn, if I can. So we had some great reaction in the pod community. Shawn and I, you might not believe this, but disagree every once in a while. My man Shawn loves these solos. Your boy hates them. And so what we put it out there into the community of like, hey, let's see like what do people like, and it was a good mix. And so we're gonna try to just mix it up going forward with some topics of, everyday stuff that we're going through. And Shawn had a good idea about talking about maybe some things that we've done in our journey as a whole that were against the grain. And we talk a lot on the show, Shawn, about taking recommendations from mentors, podcasts, books, and making it your own, right? And there will be things that you do in your scratch agency journey in your life, whatever, that people say are a terrible idea that'll never work. But if you can do it, you can do it. And so we're going to talk about a few things maybe that's been through our journey about that. And I know Shawn has a good topic to kick us off. So why don't you kick us off there, Shawn, and tell us, looking back, man, what's the biggest thing that the journey for you of this will never work, but it's worked well for Sound Harbor?
Opening my agency. Besides that obvious one.
You weren't supposed to steal mine. That was mine.
Yeah, but besides that, I would say a big one that I think comes up quite often is like, hey, I wouldn't hire a part-time person because they're not bought in. Or I would stay away from hiring part-time because they're going to be distracted. And that was something I heard a lot of from a lot of people. And I'm not saying they're completely wrong. I do feel like there are cases where that can 100% be the case. And I probably would steer away from hiring someone part-time who also has another job. You know what I mean? But if my kind of thoughts behind it were, will it give me a larger talent pool to select from? Yes.
Especially because you're 100% remote.
Yes. And is there, my kind of thought process was, well, I don't even know if I necessarily at the time had enough work to give to a full-time person. So I'm like, why am I going to spend all that money and not utilize them to the full capacity? At the time, that was my thought process. And then I considered best circumstances. There's no other jobs. So think about it. If they have another job, let's say they're a realtor or a lender or something like that, the last thing I want is for them to be in the middle of the day when they're supposed to be working for me, be pick up the phone. Oh, I got to work on this deal real quick because it's $3,000 in commission. I could totally see that happening, and I wouldn't even necessarily blame the person. My thought process going into it was, hey, just have an open mind, interview some people, see how it goes, make sure they don't have another job, and, see what kind of talent I can select from. So when I ran the ad initially, I talked to a bunch of people, and I found someone in Ohio who was a former underwriter. She came from a large agency, but she had to take care of a family member who was sick. So she needed the part-time availability. So she's like, hey, 10 to 2, Monday through Friday, that schedule works perfect. So I think having what I would say, what worked for me was having the clear, roles and responsibilities laid out. Hey, this is exactly what you would do. This is exactly what your schedule would look like. Do you think those things are realistic?
Stop you there.
Yeah.
Can I stop you there? When what was the team at the time before you brought on the part-time CSR?
Myself, Ryan, a VA, and a telemarketer.
Okay, so no specific customer service license role. So just walk us through. I want you to dive deeper into what you just brushed over of setting up the roles and responsibilities, and this is exactly what your day will look like and exactly what you'll do. Talk to us further, because I think this plays into the topic too of like, do I hire the VA? Do I hire the CSR? Do I hire what? When do I do
Yeah.
what? Talk to us too of how you delineated that and how you set that up for where you were in your journey at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Without diving too deep, I mean, I basically started doing like I did the time and energy audit thing. You and I've talked offline about that 100 times. And when I was looking at where most of my time was going, it was mainly personal line service stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. So I basically just put together a sheet. Hey, what does a licensed personal line service person do? And then I wanted to put that sheet on like a, 1-page document so that when I'm interviewing people, I could say, hey, here's a list of what your roles and responsibilities would look like. And I would put like a turnaround time on specific topics, so tasks. So if it was like a dealership calls, they need an ID card and they're having trouble trying to call the carrier direct or something like that, that's something that's got to have a quick turnaround time. So I want to make sure that that person's schedule works with ours. You know what I mean? Because I don't want people, I do believe out there's probably a misconception that, part-time is super relaxed and there's no urgency and I can work an hour, take off an hour, work an hour, so like I wanted to make it crystal clear that, hey, these are the hours you're working, these are the tasks you have, this is the expected turnaround time for each specific task. So basically the time and energy audit just helped me put those things on paper, and then I just presented it in an easy way for the person I was interviewing to be able to look over and confirm if that can be done or not. And with this specific person, I showed them their roles and responsibilities, and it wasn't an issue for them, So
The key to this is obviously how you're set up. It's very easy for you to plug in that role with the way that your agency's set up. But
because we're remote.
Well, yeah. Well, I say that in the sense of your talent pool is all 50 states, right?
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? The key is finding the right person to find the right fit, which you talked about, like someone that was just looking for part-time work for whatever reason it was, and that's what you were looking for, had experience, had the license, all of this, was looking for this exact thing, and being able to do that part-time remote, like that changes the complete game. Talk to us about when you posted the ad, because I remember this. Man, how long has she been there?
Just about a year.
It's crazy, because I remember talking about this, and I remember you calling me like, dude. Talk to us about the vetting process and the response and kind of how you went through that because I think you make a good point. We talked about this a little bit of our mastermind group of another person that was looking at part-time role versus full-time and all that. I think you make a good point. Let's put realtors and mortgage lenders in the same bucket, right? If they're looking at a part-time CSR role as a part-time gig because they need more money or realtors slow, whatever it is, like they're not going to be bought into exactly what you're doing. If they just want a part-time gig because they want to put Johnny on the bus and take Johnny off the bus, but that's the only thing that they're going to be doing, like they're going to be bought into that during the time that you're there. To your point, right? If they get a realtor lead or if they get a mortgage lead in the middle of the work, who says they're not going to take care of that and delineate from what you're trying to do? Just go back to, if you can, a year ago and kind of refilter some of our conversations around like the response. And because I remember you were, and I'm putting you in the hot seat a little bit, but you were skeptical of it. You were a little nervous if it would work or not with how you wanted to set up and what your needs are. And it's worked out very well. So just share that in the beginning phase.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the ad specifically, so I mean, I used Indeed. I didn't do anything super fancy. And on Indeed, I feel like I underestimated the power of how important the headline and the ad actually is. And I remember when I tweaked the ad, I forgot the exact wording I used in the headline. It's saved in Indeed now as a template, but like, I put something like, fully remote available, like just something super simple like that, just added into the headline. And I remember I must have gotten, I don't know, it was like hundreds of people where I had to like turn it off in like 2 days because I couldn't even like filter through enough of the people to like interview them and look over resumes and all that stuff. So I do think it's underestimated. Like if you word your ads right specifically the headline and the body of the ad, it does make a huge difference as far as how many people are going to click on it and fill it out.
Talk to the person that has not hired someone out of state about the process. Like, what does that process look like from like licensing or having to get them set up or all that?
Yeah. So every state's going to be a little different. I mean, for my state, they basically had to have their resident license, and then through, NIPR or whatever other site you want to use, they can get their non-resident license in my state. And again, every state's different, but my state, like New York, basically, as long as they had their active resident license, they can just add on their non-resident and they'd be good to go.
So as long as they have the active license in their state, they can add it on to the other state that they're working out of, right? And
Correct. And the CE follows the resident state that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I don't have that wrong. I'm 99% sure that's how it goes. And then besides that, I mean, logistic wise, we use Dell leasing program for their computers. So I got a computer, put software on it, had my IT guy put his, security stuff on there. We installed some Insightful software so we can kind of like monitor the the productivity on the computer. Got some of the apps and stuff put on there and then sent it out, and everything else can be tried. Like, I think some of the worry with other people is like, oh man, how am I going to know they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're not just like doing the dishes for 2 hours and doing laundry and all that stuff. I think it's fine if they are doing some of that stuff, but the Insightful software, and there's probably other tech out there, it's tracking everything. How long are they idle for? Like, are they just randomly logged off for 2 hours? It randomly takes screenshots of their computer, all that stuff.
Well, especially when you have like in your situation too, of like, this is the role, this is the things that I need you to get done from 10 to 2, whatever it is. You're going to know whether they're getting done or not.
100%. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you'll know if the tasks are getting done. So yeah, I mean, I would say, just to add, because we were talking a lot about what's worked, I would say what hasn't worked so far, this is just one thing I was thinking of, is like, the downside of it is when they leave at 2:00, if something does come in between 2 and 5 that's urgent, our team has to kind of pick up the slack. And if it takes a licensed person to do it, it falls on myself or somebody else on my team that's licensed. So I would say, that's the hurdle you'll come across when it comes to part-time.
Okay, Shawn, so answer this question for me. But Shawn, I'm growing my agency, and what happens when I hire that part-time person, but then I get past that point and I need more help? What do you do then, Shawn?
No, I'm not there yet, but I would say
the answer I needed.
Yeah, I'm probably, it's hopefully it gets you to a point, like what's worked in the sense of that is we brought on a VA to assist the part-time person. So the part-time person, they come in, they're just doing the license stuff, and then the VA can help pick up the slack on the non-licensed stuff, which has helped dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, if I'm thinking next hire, it's probably a full-time personalized licensed person. So we don't have those little gaps,
right,
9 to 10 or 2 to 5. So that would be my easy answer to that.
Well, now I'll push back a little on my own question too and we've heard this and we've talked to people that are maybe further along in their journey of like, don't overthink of the now versus where it's trying to get you. Like, this could just be the stage. I need a part-time person so I can afford. That's what I need right now to get me to the next point. And not saying you have to like let that person go to hire full-time, but like maybe that next hire after that's a VA to help that person more when they're on, or to your point,
and that's what we did.
Thing is going to go all in. Like, it's so hard to not try to think about like, well, like, what do I need for the future rather than what I need now to get me to the next season. I tell you what, this is a little off topic, but I'm just going to go with it. When I listened to a Hermosia episode about 3 months ago, and he was just talking about the seasons of business, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, it just like slapped me right in the face.
Yeah,
like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, this is the 10-year goal. I want to be to this point, this much premium, this big team, this much impact, blah, 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 blah. But like, what's going to get you to the next season? Like, there's not enough, in my opinion, not enough focus on like this is the season I'm in. We talked about that a lot at our meetup in Dallas,
Yeah.
right? This is the season I'm in.
And that's why I'm
What's
doing
going to get me
things the
to the
way I'm
next
doing
season?
them now. In 3 years, the next year it could be completely different because now I got to
And
pick up this kid from school at 3:00 every day.
well, and you'll figure it out then because it's a different season and there's different problems, right? But we can get so. Let me rephrase this. I'm not going to say we. I have caught myself doing this a lot of like, well, what's the next couple of years going to look like? Trying to draw that out and plan ahead of that versus like, how do we get to here in the next 6 months? And not focusing enough energy on that now and that season and worried about the next. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%, man. You're spot on because, again, we say it all the time, but it's like, look at our two agencies. Couldn't be more different from each other. I'm in a coastal area where each policy has a huge premium. In a big city, you're in a small town, premiums per policy are lower, but you're more community driven in your small town. It's like two totally different markets. And the way you run yours and the way I run mine is different, but it works for where we're located. So I think at the end of the day, you just got to find that person that matches your quote unquote like demographic the best. Pick and choose what works best for the season of life that you're in.
Hey, looking back now, have you hit the 4-year mark? You did. You almost hit
Sure.
5, right?
Yeah. I think so. I lose track nowadays.
We're not going to talk about the topic I was going to talk about because
Okay.
this is we're almost at time, and I want to keep this short, but this is good. When you look back at advice you've received over your time from being a producer to owning an agency, if 5 years ago when you started your agency, you could go back with what you know now, what's the number one thing you would change around that topic, around advice, mentorship, listening to others, all of that? And let me rephrase something that I don't think we have stressed enough. When you first came out and said, I think I'm going to get a part-time CSR, I'm pretty sure everybody that you talked to said it was a bad idea. Am I wrong?
Except one person, yes.
That was probably me. You can just say Steven. I'm probably the one that told you it was a bad idea, but there's that. But just with all that, like for people that are listening that are either starting right now or thinking about it, like what would you tell Shawn 5 years ago around this topic that you now know now that you've learned?
Oh, around this topic specifically?
This is great because I know how much you love when I just throw things at you. Like
yeah,
this.
no. I mean, related to hiring part-time. I don't know if I would have done anything.
Not related to hiring part-time, related to the noise of what your agency and what you should should look like versus
yes. I mean, I would say the clarity is just, if I could go back, I would just have more clarity. Like, hey, this is what I need to focus on. You know, in the beginning, we were the way we brought in leads was all over the place, and I kind of wish I dialed if I had that more dialed in. You know, kind of like how I have my plan dialed in. Hey, this is the paid marketing that we're doing versus trying to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I was all over. So I think just not having those distractions would have put us on the path faster. And then like knowing, and I think I just posted this today on Instagram, and I love this saying is like volume creates luck, you know? And I think when you have a focus and you don't have distractions on what your lead gen engine looks like, it can create a lot of volume. And once that happens, things just start clicking. You find out where things are going wrong and you improve on it and you get better and better and better and better and better. So for me, it would be volume creates luck, and, you know, figure out what's distracting you and keep that noise to the side, you know? Like that, you don't need to spend so much time on, sorry, Chris Langio, you don't need to spend so much time on your website. You know, put your focus and energy into the things that are going to move the needle, especially in the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what I'll add to this is looking back at my journey is and I can pretty confidently say 100% of the time this is true with me. Whatever the first inkling is that this is the right thing to do and that's the right idea is most likely it.
Yeah.
You know, I look back at like the season so far and it's like, man, I should have decided to do this earlier, but I didn't because I was afraid, or I didn't because I was in my head, or because Bob told me maybe not a good idea. And Bob had experience and whatever. Like if I look back at it, almost 100% of the time, if I'm just thinking of, a handful of things in my mind right now of, yeah, that was the initial thing I said I should have done. That was the way we should have done this. That was the way we should have done that.
Yeah.
And so, because like, and I know we were going to talk about this, but we'll talk about it another time. But like, I've gotten a decent amount of people, which has been super cool to at least just have a conversation with. They've listened to podcasts that are in family businesses, that are in businesses and looking to leave and wanting to pick my brain. And they're like, should I do it? Right. And you have like a 20-minute conversation. Now, I'm on the other side of it. I did it. You have like a 20-minute conversation, and it's like they answer their own question through the conversation. You know the answer, and I think that's the case most of the time.
100%. That's why too, it's important to make friends in this industry, because you need to be able to talk it out with people sometimes.
No kidding.
And sometimes just talking it out with somebody, like you said, you just answer your own questions and it makes you feel better about it,
For sure.
But yeah, that's all I got, man.
Good stuff. Everybody, thanks for being here. Appreciate you listening to us vent a little bit. And the end of that was definitely a vent session. I feel a lot better. Everybody, make sure to check out the Telegram. Go to scratchandcpodcast.com. Join the Telegram. We got great conversations in there. Great community people around the topic Shawn just brought up of meeting people. We talked last week about starting your own mastermind group. That's the place to at least get started, create those relationships, foster the relationships, and get it rocking and rolling. That's another episode of the Scratch NC podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. And most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.